Hi, the Octatrack is a great device if you want to chop up some audio into slices. So I thought today I'm going to share some ways in which I like to use the slicer functionality of the Octatrack, and along the way talk about some parameters related to that and tell you what they do in case you don't know yet. So let's get started. The first one is just straight up chopping up beats. I've got a beat already in here, I think. Sounds like this. The easiest way to put this beat into your sequencer is by just entering this trigger on step 1 and then the beat plays. But you can also slice it up and then enter a trig on each step. So for this you hold function and then press the AED key, which has the secondary function slice grid, and then you get this menu where you can pick how many slices you would like. I'm going to pick 16 because it's just one bar of 16th notes. Then I'm going to press yes. So it aligns the slices to 0 crossings, which leads to less clicking, which I guess is a good thing. If I enter 16 triggers here, what I'm going to hear is just the same slice being played over and over again. I'm going to have to turn slice on here, but it leads to the same result. Sounds like I missed one. Yes. The quickest way to make it so that every step is playing the right slice is to go into the slice menu, which you do by pressing the AED key and then the amp button, which brings you to the slice menu. And then when you press yes, you get a couple of options for what you can do with those slices. And one of them is create linear locks. What this means is it's gonna create locks for each of the trigs you have in your sequence, and it's going to start with slice 1, slice 2, slice 3, and so on. So I'm going to do this. It asks me alter trigs. Sure, yes, I am sure. And now you can see they started blinking, telling you that they have some parameter locked to them. If I go to this source page and hold one of the trigs, you can see this is inversed now and says slice 5 is locked to trigger 5. And if I play this back now, it sounds pretty much the same as before. So you might ask, why would you want to do that? Well, the answer is pretty simple. There's some things you can do now with it that you couldn't do before. For example, I could modulate the pitch with an LFO. So I'm going to do this here. I'm going to use LFO 3, modulate pitch, and set this to hold. So it just stays on one value per trig. If you were to do this with just one trig and the entire sample, it would just speed up the whole sample and it wouldn't last for an entire bar, which is usually not what you want. So this is a good way to do this. Or you could play around with envelopes, with the amp envelope, for example. Make things really short. I think this is a good way to tighten up a groove if you have lots of things going on. Can be nice. I could also here maybe instead of the pitch set this to the amp release. So now the release goes from fast to slow and from slow to fast. I'm going to speed this up a little bit so you get more changes in here, or even set this to sample and hold. Keep in mind that the LFOs are bipolar, so here in this example, if I have the release set to 0, half of the time the release is going to be 0. If you want a different value every time, you have to make sure I have the depth set now to 80 to have this set to half of this, I think. Amp, we'll go 40. Yeah, sounds more random to me. I'm not sure, though, what the exact value is. This is one way you can do this, rearrange the slices in the right order. The disadvantage of this is if you delete some trigs. You can do this and everything's still going to be in the right order. You'd have to re-enter them and then add the locks again, or go back into the slicer menu and create linear locks. which is not that big of a deal, but in the heat of the action, I think that's not ideal. So what I like to do to rearrange the slices in the right order is to not use locks. So I'm going to re-enter those trigs, but without any locks, but an LFO instead. So I'm going to use LFO1 for this. I'm going to set the destination to, where is it? Start the wave to a ramp up shape. This is better than a sawtooth wave because it's not bipolar. So it starts at 0 and then it goes up, which is what we want for the slices. Otherwise, we'd have to mess with the start parameter on the source page. This way, it's just easier. And then I'm going to set the trig mode to sync trig, which means it's going to restart this LFO every time the pattern repeats. So we're going to start at 0 every time over again, which is nice because we want the first slice. And then for the speed, find that a setting of 32 for the speed and 64 for the depth works nicely for a 16-step sequence. Now something's not working right here. Oh, this is still random. So now we got the right order and I can get rid of trigs, put them back in. It's still, everything's going to stay in order. So yeah, that's nice. And this gives you the same possibilities as with the parameter locks. Only downside is it costs you an LFO. So if you're going to need 3 LFOs, or stick to the parameter locks. If not, this is a good way to do it. By the way, with the parameter locks in the slice menu, you also have the option to create random locks, which does exactly what you think it would do. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it just randomly assigns a slice to each trigger. Now, it's good to keep in mind that it only adds a parameter lock to the trigs you have in the sequence. So if we have a sequence like this, for example, with only 6 triggers, and I'm going to go create linear locks, it's going to assign them in the same way. First trigger, slice 1, slice 2, slice 3, slice 4, and so on. So if we have a look at this, this should be slice 4 now, and it says slice 4 right here. Maybe another example of what you can do with sliced up beats. I'm going to get rid of the locks again and have the LFO do the work. You could, for example, increase the retrigger here and the time. Until you get like a oscillator kind of thing, and then maybe assign this setting to a scene. And I'm going to set this back to 0. So now I can morph between just a beat and an oscillator. Of course, the oscillator probably sounds a bit better with a shorter envelope. Maybe filter it a little bit. Add some filter envelope mode. Now, because it goes through the slices, the wave shape of the oscillator is going to be a little bit different each time. If you don't want to have that, just assign the LFO depth of this first one also to the scene. So now we always get that first slice and it's always going to sound the same. Which can also be nice without the retriggering. So I'm going to get rid of this again. Yeah. Which just gives you kind of a beat repeat effect, kind of a stutter thing, just the bass drum on the one. I still have the filter on here. And everywhere in between, the amount of slices that are going to be played back is going to decrease from left to right. So here we have 3, some more, and each one here, just 1. Yeah, cool. So let's look at some other things than the beats for which a slicer can be useful. So I've got over here on this track 3. Let me see if that's true. Yeah, this chord sample. It's a couple of nice chords, and I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna just slice it up first into, well, what should I say? 8 slices. I'm just gonna try. I'm gonna manually play this, see what I can do with those slices that I got. For this, I'm gonna put this into slices mode. Now you can see the slices should light up green. They don't, which means we're not in the slice mode. So I have to turn this on. Yeah, something like this. Now the thing I want to play is 2 bars long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the pattern settings and set this to per track. So I can make this longer, 32 steps, but keep the rhythm track just 1 bar long. And then what I have to do is increase the master length as well to maybe 32. And then I'm going to record this. Now you can hear that last slice stops playing. This is because it ends when the slice ends. But there's something you can do about this. If you don't want that, you can go into the source setup menu. And then here on the very right, it says length, which is set to slice right now. You can change this between time and slice. And when it's set to slice, the length parameter here determines how many slices should be played back. Which means if the sample playback starts at slice 1 and you set this to 2, you're going to hear slice 1 and 2. If the start point is at slice 5, you're going to hear slice 5 and 6, and so on. If it's set to time, this basically just trims the slice. I like this. I'm going to filter it maybe a little bit. Add some delay. Now I think it's a good time to add a bass. Here's the bass sample, which sounds like this. It's got 4 bass notes in there, but they're not in the right spot. So I'm gonna also chop this up into, I only need 4 slices. Yes. And then here I'm gonna manually assign the start point for the slices. So for this, you can go into the slice menu, and then when you press left and right, you can pick a slice, or what you can also do is here in the slices mode, and then in slice menu, again, you can see they don't light up, which means we have to turn on the slicer. And now in the slice menu, I can pick my slice. Down here, you can see slice 1, slice 2, slice 3, and so on. And now I want to hear it. You can hear it doesn't start right away. There's a little bit of silence in the beginning, and I don't want that. So I'm going to move the start point up until here. By the way, if you hold down function and adjust the start point, it will snap to 0 crossings, which can be quite useful. I'm going to go on to the next sample, which I want to be here, I think. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in. Yeah, I'm probably going to fast forward through this part. You get the idea. So now I've got my 4 bass notes, and here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to manually enter them into the sequencer. I want this to be even longer than the 2 bars, so Here I'm gonna set this to 8 bars, I think, or even better, I'll leave it at 1. And then I'm gonna scale this down to 1/8, and then the master length needs to be 128 steps long. So I'm gonna do this, and then back to the sequencer. On the first step, I want it to be slice 1, which it already is, and then here, slice 2. Just gonna manually lock them to the sequencer. I could also just enter the 4 and then go create linear locks. It would have the same effect. So let's have a listen now. Now this third note sounds pretty wrong to my ear, so I'm gonna adjust the pitch also with the parameter lock. Here, bass, third note. I think it needs to be 1 semitone higher. Now there's more in the slices than I would like, but you can also, of course, trim the slices. So I'm gonna go to slice 1, make sure there's only this one note in here. Slice 2, slice 3, and slice 4. Okay, yeah, this is just manually placing different bass notes of a bass line in different spots. And then what I really like to do with slicing is the following. Just kind of create random melodies by using melody slices and then randomly rearranging them. So for this, I've got this guitar thing here, which sounds like this. And what I'm gonna do here is, of course, slice it into 16. I'm gonna try 16. And then turn on slice mode. Enter a rhythm here, just anything. And now we can hear the guitar sample being triggered. And I'm gonna modulate the start point here with a LFO. I'm gonna set this to hold. Where is the hold here? Make it maybe a bit faster. I set the depth too high because it's only 16 slices. Again, I want this to be probably in the middle, and then on the source page, I want this to be on slice 8 or 9. Now it seems to be in a slightly different key, so I'm gonna try to tune this. I'm gonna try a 4th above. Now it's being stretched. I don't want that, so I'm turning this stretch mode to off. And now the rhythm is really wonky because the slices don't align with the transients. What I'm going to do to address this here is I'm going to go into the slicer and just go through the slices and align them to transients, or just make sure they're not in a silent spot. I have to turn off the random LFO here because otherwise there's no point, because I can't hear where the sample starts. You can just use your ears for this. When the sample sounds good, where it's being triggered, it's all right. Now I have some silence here in the end. To make sure we don't get too much of this, what I can do is, again, press yes to get to this slice menu, and then I can delete slices if I want to. So I'm going to do this here. Nice. Sounds like a pentatonic mess. If you want some visual feedback of how random your slices actually are, just go into this slice menu. And you can see which slices are being triggered. So I can see here now, this doesn't go across the whole range. So probably what I have to do is set this to 16. So this can be either completely random if I set this to a sample and hold. If you want a recognizable repeating pattern, set this to sync trig and then this maybe to anything but sample and hold, maybe a saw. Play around with the speed. Until you like what you hear. Now these slices are pretty short, so I'm going to see what happens if I increase the length here to maybe 4. Yeah, I love this. Could also here add another LFO. Oh no, that doesn't work because you cannot modulate LFO3. So I'd have to use LFO2 to do this. I was going to say I could modulate the depth of LFO3, but for this, well, let me do this real quick. If you hold a button here for a page, you can see the values without having to touch the encoders, which is pretty handy sometimes. 65 and 16. In my experience, 65 works better than 64 because sometimes with the 64, the first slice gets triggered twice, probably because it's at the exact same spot where it should move to slice 2, the LFO, and it can't decide which slice it should play depending on how fast the machine does its thing. I don't know. But with 65, when it's like slightly overshooting, it always plays back correctly. So now I could use LFO3 to modulate LFO depth 2 with maybe a sample and hold. First, a little bit of variation. Sweet. What else have we got here? A vocal sample on this track 3. Sounds like this. I don't know what to make of how you look in the eye. And here I'm just gonna, well, do some random stuff here. Enter some triggers, slice it up into, let's say, 32 slices. Yes. Turn the slicing on. Go to the LFO page and LFO1, modulate the start time with a sample and hold LFO. Speed this up a little bit. Yeah. Now I'm not happy with the pitch, so I'm tune this. Again, I'm going to increase the starting slice here because otherwise we're gonna get just a whole lot of slice 1. Gonna set this to slice 16 because that's the middle of 32. I'm gonna check to what I set this to. Maybe 32 is a good place to start. Now I'm not sure whether I just sang off key or whether I don't have the right key here. I'm gonna try 7. No. 3. Yeah. And here for some variation in the pitch, I'm gonna use another LFO, maybe LFO 1, and I'm gonna use the LFO designer here. In the LFO designer, with the depth of an LFO set to 127, 5 equals 1 semitone. So here, if I go -25, this is a 4th. If I go -60, that should be an octave. Gonna try +35. And maybe one more time, -25. Let's see what this sounds like. If I have to assign this. This is the track 3 LFO, so I have to go to track 3 here. And I'm going to set this to sync trig. I think it's kind of cool. Again, amp is always nice. Messing with the amp. Has some delay. So some of the guitar slices are a little bit off still, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Yeah. Of course, again, you can assign many things to the scenes, so that's always a great thing to do on the Octatrack. But I'm not going to do this here because I think it's going to take too long. But before I go, what I would like to show you is that you can also do this in real time when you have stuff you're sampling. Now, I don't have anything plugged in here right now, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to resample the main output of the Octatrack itself. So I think I have this already set up. Let me check. Yeah, 16. After recording length of this track 7 set to 16, and quantization for the triggering of the recording also to 16. So it's always going to start at the beginning of a bar. So I'm just going to resample this. Hold track 7 and press record 3. The plus right here tells you that it's recording, and it's recorded the bar now. If you go to this audio menu here, editor, we can see it, and then let's maybe have another look at this slice menu where you can also find the create slice grid command. And I'm going to pick 16 slices. So now I've got these 16 slices. Turn on the slicer, and then I'm going to enter 16 steps onto the grid. And then I'm just going to go to track 1, to the LFOs of track 1. And then I'm going to copy this LFO page, which is super handy that you can do this. You hold this LFO button and then you press copy, and it says copy page. I'm going to go to track 7 and paste it. So now, if this worked correctly, we should already be hearing the playback of what we just recorded. Yeah, we can make it shorter, for example. Now it's a bit quieter than the rest, so I'm dialing up the volume here. And like I said, you can easily do this in real time. So this brings me back to my master track here. I'm going to go to the delay control here, turn this off. I'm going to turn on this lock here. Now I can do those beat repeat kind of things with the delay control. So now I'm going to try to sample this in real time. Now it's in here. What I could do, for example, is have a scene here where I have only track 7 active. So, and here over here, I'm going to mute track 7, and not the other ones, of course. I'm going to increase the hold time here so we can hear the entire thing that I'm going to sample. And now I can sample it, move the slider. And now it's only track 7 that we're hearing. And what I could do now is, for example, bring back the original beat by dialing up the volume. Bring back the bass. It's a bit loud now, the track 7. I admit this might take a little bit of practice to be able to pull this off in a live situation, but it's really cool that it's possible, and we can easily go back and forth now between this and this. And also again, tighten this up. Maybe filter this track 1. Again with the pitch LFO on the release envelope and the pitch envelope. This is just great with the Octatrack, all those kinds of things. So yeah, I think this is enough for today. I hope you found this interesting or useful, and thanks a lot for being here.